Hey, Billy with Power Core 360 here today with Greta. Today is episode number 2 in how to hit a volleyball harder. What are the strength exercises you can do for that? Last time we talked about some exercises for the rotator cuff. And before we go too far in today to the next exercise, I want to spend just a minute because it's really important. I don't want to blow over the rotator cuff. It's hugely important, and that's why we start there first. If we're talking about how to hit harder and prevent injuries, both of which are important for volleyball, we want to talk about the rotator cuff. And very quickly, I'm going to give you just a little bit of anatomy. So I'm going to have Greta turn around and face over there. And we're going to talk about what the rotator cuff does. This is your right shoulder blade or right scapula. So for her, that's kind of how that thing sits in there like that. This would be your clavicle, and it sits in like that against the rib cage. This is your humerus, the arm bone. So when she raises her arm up to hit, that's kind of what's happening, right? It's important that the scapula is in a really good position, and I'll show you why, okay? So here's what happens. The humerus actually goes into the shoulder blade. That's actually the shoulder joint. And what I want you to understand is you can't see it very well here, but this is a ball and socket. And a ball and socket, it gives you a lot of motion, but in the shoulder, it's really unstable. It moves out of there really easy. So you've had a situation where you dislocated your right shoulder, or sports injury, pitching. A lot of people have shoulder issues, and it's because the shoulder joint's unstable. I'm going to give you a better visual. If this is the scapula, and if I took my fingers and made that's kind of like, here's the ball and that's the socket, we'll call this a basket for a second. If that basket had big fingers, and I took my arm bone and put it in there, those fingers would kind of hold that in place. So as the arm moves in the shoulder, it'd be relatively stable. But that's really not how it's designed. This saucer is very shallow. It's not deep at all, and it has no fingers to hold it in there. So when the arm goes in there, it sits in this socket, and it wants to move around. Now you have two things that hold it in there. Number one is your labrum, which you tore, okay? The labrum is a big ligament that holds that in there, and then you have the rotator cuff, which is 4 muscles that as you move your arm, right, to hit a volleyball, throw whatever you're doing, those muscles are connected from here to here into that bone, and they're pulling that bone into that socket and holding that there as you rotate. So before you start worrying about the pecs and the big muscles, the big sexy ones that generate a lot of forces, the most important thing we talk about is the rotator cuff and what it does functionally to hold the shoulder in place as you swing. Make sense? So that's the shoulder. We're talking about the humerus and scapula, and we said it's really unstable, but we're going to spend a little bit more time before we get into the exercise on the scapula. The position of the scapula or the shoulder blade is really critical, not only for hitting hard, but once again for preventing injuries. If I had Greta turn around there, and if I look at her and I put this back in here, that's where it's supposed to be, and it should be down flat against the rib cage. As she moves her arm up and she goes through a hitting motion, this thing is going to turn around, but it should stay relatively flat against the shoulder blade. Now, if you're a typical young volleyball player, male or female, I'm going to give them a side view. Here's oftentimes what I see when I walk in to see an athlete, and I see this rounded shoulder position. And so what's happened here, I'll turn you, is instead of the shoulders kind of being back and the scapula being back where it's supposed to be flat against the rib cage, it gets either tipped up and or winged out like that. And that happens oftentimes because as athletes and people in the gym, we're working all the time, we're reaching, we're using our pecs, the chest muscles in front, the front part of the shoulder, and it tends to pull the shoulder blade forward. It pulls the shoulder out of position. What I'm trying to get to real quickly is we want to really work on the muscles on the back side because oftentimes they're weak and they don't have much endurance. Their job is to actually go ahead and relax your arm, is to pull the shoulder blade back, and that's where she should be in space with her shoulder. So when her arm goes up and it goes through the swinging or throwing motion, it's staying in a good position. If you're this athlete that is bent, tipped forward and winged forward, you try to lift your arm up, you'll run out of room here, out of real estate, and you can get impingement, you can get all kinds of pain, the shoulder will get hot, it'll get inflamed, you got issues. The fix, sometimes the fix is not just digging in here into the shoulder, oftentimes it's the position of the scapula in space, just drop your arm, it's the position of the scapula in space that we need to fix. So this first exercise we're going to do, and really the first one we're going to focus on today, is a common exercise you do in a gym. A lot of people do it. And so you can do it seated, sitting, you can do it standing. We're going to do a seated row. So in this case, it doesn't matter whether you're using resistance bands, you can use a machine, doesn't matter. Go ahead and start your rowing motion for me. Now, go ahead and continue. Greta, when you're doing this or when you see people doing this in the gym, what's one of the common things you see them doing with technique-wise with this?
Arching their back or using their momentum to pull back.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I'm going to even go more basic than that. Guys, when they do this, they think this is a bicep exercise, right? So go ahead and do that, and they'll start really using their bicep to pull this thing back. And the reality is, as you're doing this, it's a seated row, the bicep can be working, but really what I want working is the back of the shoulder blade. So relax, turn around and face the other way. And what I'm looking for in this exercise, if she goes through like the band was in front of her, what I'm looking to see first in this with her arms forward is the shoulder blade should actually go out and round. It gives a stretch between the traps, the rhomboids, and other muscles back here. What I want to see happen first, the right sequence should be that. The shoulder blade should move back, flat against, and that's what I should be seeing in this shirt. If you're working with an athlete or somebody in fitness, what you ought to be cueing them to do is their arms to go out to let them feel, say, okay, that's a good stretch. That's what the shoulder blades are supposed to do. Now use these muscles to pull that back first. Squeeze them together, and those shoulder blades should be flat down against the rib cage. Cool? So it is a posterior backside of the shoulder exercise. That's what we're looking for. What I don't want to really see, and what I'll try to inhibit or have the athlete or fitness person do, is take their biceps out of it. I don't want to see this and their shoulders still forward. I want to see them pull back and open their shoulders, right? Open their chest by pulling their shoulder blades back. So grab those bands again, and I'm going to ask her to go through that. And this time, instead of really focusing on the bicep doing the work, once again, I want her to sit tall, and I want to see from the backside her shoulder blades opening up. Okay? I want her to just go ahead and repeat that. And I'm going to show you a couple of other things that she mentioned, right? One of the things that will happen is the back really arching. As human beings, we tend to overuse our lower back. And in fact, once again, this is designed for the upper shoulder blade muscles in the back, not the lower back. So I'm just going to cue her. I want her to get really long, really tall through her spine. To do that, posturally, you just saw her change. She kicks on her transverse abs. We've talked about that in the videos. Now I want her to come back and just subtly use the muscles between her shoulder blades. And I want to cue her, if I'm working with her, to say, relax your muscles in your lower back, right? Turn your abs on, sit tall, hold that tall, and just shoulder blades coming back, okay? Awesome. Repeat a couple more like that. I want her to go ahead and grip that with her fingers. Take your thumb around there. And actually, when we do that, when we grip, it tells the nervous system to turn on some of the smaller muscles up here behind the shoulder blades. If we just go the real loose grip, we're not going to get as much out of this as we can, okay? I'm going to have her take the arms forward, feel a good stretch, okay? Bring it back into that position, and now hold for me. So in this position, her shoulder blades ought to be down. We ought to see the chest opening up. Now I'm going to ask her to hold that position. When we're moving it back, it's a strength exercise. Now when I'm asking her to hold that, it becomes an endurance exercise. I want her to lighten her grip a little bit, but you can see she's starting to shake. She has the strength to make this exercise happen, but she doesn't have a lot of endurance to take it and hold that there. These are more endurance muscles. Their job is to be able to hold the shoulder blades there in space. And you can relax, okay? So make it not just a strength exercise. Get them back into that position and have them hold it 10, 15, 30 seconds if they have that much endurance. Make them breathe. They'll get a lot more out of it, okay? Mm-hmm. From your perspective, if I'm doing this in the gym or you're working with one of your clients and they're not concerned about hitting a volleyball and protecting their shoulder, what's this going to do for them? How's this going to help them?
It's helping them fix their posture, pulling their shoulder blades straight back and loosening out their shoulders.
Okay. So maybe stand, look at the mirror. We're going to give the camera a side view here. And show me how a lot of people walk in the gym, right? And so they're walking in, the shoulders are forward, hunched. Why? Because we're out here all day. We're reaching out here. Muscles get short in front. They pull you out of position. So seated row, if it's done really well, can do what? Show me that correction, okay? We're pulling the shoulders down and back, okay? If we build the endurance in there, then I don't have to cue you to do that. They should be there just throughout the day on their own, okay? Relax your lower back. These guys are down and back. There we go. Now, one other small little bit. I'm going to have you turn and face the whiteboard, okay? One of the things you'll see when people are learning how to turn on their scapular muscles, go ahead and do that, and you're going to see this. You're going to see the shoulders hunch up. We don't want that. That's your upper traps firing. We don't want them on. We want to tell them to chill out. We want these guys here and down here to work, Relax this. So we ought to see actually this part stretching. Makes sense? Awesome. That's all we've got today. That's episode number 2. Next time we're going to come back and talk about the next piece. We appreciate your time. If you like this, like us down below. If you want further information about our products, go to powercore360.com.